Hello, everyone. Welcome to Heart Rhythm TV. My name is Haley Chute, and we're here today at the Innovative HRX Conference, bringing together some of the brightest minds in electrophysiology, healthcare, and technology. In the heart of these traditionally male-dominated fields, our esteemed panelists have carved out extraordinary careers, breaking barriers and pioneering new horizons. Allow me to introduce to you the bright minds who will share their insights with us today. First, we have Dr. Andrea Russo, Academic Chief of the Division of Cardiology and Director of Cardiac Electrophysiology and Arrhythmia Services at Cooper University Healthcare, past President of HRS Society. Her extensive publications in leading EP journals reflect her deep expertise in a particular focus on unraveling sex differences in arrhythmia management. Joining her is Dr. Camille Fraizer-Mills, an electrophysiologist at Duke Health, driven by her passion for understanding the intersection of gender and race in electrophysiology care. She's published groundbreaking work in this area. Last but certainly not least, we have Noemi co-founder and vice president of operations, product operations, at PaceMate, recognized as a top women leader in medical devices by Healthcare Technology Report 2 years in a row, I might add. Her diverse journey from pharmacy to nursing to industry and now technology innovator brings a wealth of experience to our conversation. So welcome and thank you. Let's get this party started. We've heard a lot today about blind spots in machine learning and artificial intelligence, which have been attributed to underrepresentation in the data set that AI is trained on. Do you think that we're doubling down if we're having men as the leading voice in what we're asking of AI? So to ask this another way, is there a female perspective that is missing in driving the development of these technologies? I'll turn that to you, Dr. Russo.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. I think AI has such great potential to, hopefully equalize some of these gaps in care that we have and disparities, but it all depends on what data sets we have. We have to make sure that those data sets are representative of a wide variety, that women need to be, included in those data sets. For example, if you look at, ICD trials, a very low representation of women in those trials, and the outcomes of women, could be potentially different than men, or the enrollment criteria may be, a little bit different for women than men to benefit from certain therapies, or CRT, for example, and cure restoration. So I think we need to make sure that the data sets have the appropriate representation of women. In addition, I think it's important, and we've seen throughout the years, is women need to be part of the investigative team, right? They need to be, part of the researchers. They need to be invited to, look at the data that's out there. So I think it's important to keep those things in mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd add, I think having those variables and looking at it from a woman's perspective is different. And then there's different phenotypic or just kind of classifications that we may think of. And so incorporating those points into it is going to be key. And so I think not only should we make sure that the data sets include more women, but I think also the thought leaders, as we're developing these sets, really need to have more women representation.
Yeah. Noemi, your perspective?
Completely agree. I mean, we've seen this across not just gender studies, but also an example, skin cancer in Caucasians, and that's mostly what we've studied, but we need to also look at the other groups and also what is happening and what they are experiencing as well.
Yeah, thank you. Moving on, during the early years of the COVID-19 pandemic, research from the Center for Economic Policy Research, as well as the World Economic Forum, suggested that the proactive and coordinated policy responses of female leadership led to half as many deaths on average as those countries led by men. What parallels do you see in your work as female healthcare leaders? Turn that to you again, Dr. Russo.
Yeah, so I think women could have a different perspective, I think, on the care of other women. I think a lot of us in our practices may see more women come to us, or maybe are referred to women more than others. So I think we also are there listening to patients, and they may have different outside, care resources needed than men. So I think taking some of these things into account can certainly impact on outcomes and how we take care of patients and how to get to patients and give them knowledge and education on the topic. So I think that may be partially why we saw some of those differences.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think also having a more comprehensive thought process or approach to problem solving. I think that sometimes certain people will just make a decision and maybe not think it all the way through, or think about the the population, the larger population. And so trying to incorporate various populations and be a little more thoughtful or broad in our approach, and maybe that comes more from a female perspective. At least personally, I thought maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. Noemi, anything?
I think women bring such a personal touch to healthcare, whether you're a nurse or a physician, and making that patient feel comfortable to share and remember what they wanted to bring to that visit.
Yeah. One of the other pieces that they added to this was that women have a tendency to be more decisive as well, and so they took early and decisive action during the pandemic, and that is what was one of the things that attributed to saving of lives. So. Moving on, how are you thinking about the intersection of innovation and compassion here at HRX and more generally of digital, the innovation and compassion with digital healthcare and patient care? What are the lessons learned that you would share with those pursuing and pushing technologies in this market? Noemi?
I would say just remembering to keep our values, especially when it comes to developing different technologies, specifically with artificial intelligence, that an AI algorithm can't be empathetic with a patient that they just told they have a new diagnosis of cancer, and just keeping that human element, keeping those values and that compassion along with that technology.
I think we are all hoping at least that having access to technologies, having access to wearable devices and being more widespread, it can actually help to reduce these gaps and equalize the care across the board. And so I think brought up at this at HRX, we have to think about other things too. We have a potential to even widen some of those gaps, and we need to be careful about that, right? If we don't have national access to the internet, that's going to impact on care, even in digital care. If we don't all have access to smartwatches or smart technology, even though it seems relatively inexpensive, we don't want to widen those gaps, so we need to be careful about that.
I think being mindful of the potential for disparities in certain populations at risk is going to be very key as we advance kind of this digital care. I think also incorporating efficiencies. I think there's many gaps in our healthcare system where utilizing AI could improve efficiencies. And so trying to pick out the pieces that will be most useful right now and incorporating them and not being resistant to change, I think is going to be a huge next step for us.
Yeah. Anything more to add about compassion? I wonder if that's something that we think about as missing in this realm of technology can only do so much for us. How do we bring that forward in our care, especially as it moves more digitally?
I think it's always going to be the human touch. I mean, you need human touch. It doesn't matter. I mean, the algorithm may be smart enough to say you may have this, right? But until we validate it and then us as physicians then take on what's the next step in care, I mean, it can spew out anything, but it doesn't matter. How does that incorporate with that patient's family values and all of the stuff that they're dealing with? You have to have that component. So I think it has to remain very humanistic for sure.
And I think those the conversations, you still need to have a conversation. I mean, ideally, especially if it's something bad, that you identify, or need to have a personal conversation, better in person perhaps, and maybe we can do it, through some of, the virtual health kind of technologies we use, but you still need to have that compassion, and patients can see. They can see on your face. We don't have to wear a mask now, so they can see on your face that you're really, feeling for them, and so that's going to be an important part no matter how much technology we have.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of disparities, there is a disproportionate representation of gender and race in technology that we, of course, know. U.S. Census Bureau estimates, for example, that 27% of STEM jobs are held by women and only 8% held by Hispanic adults. With such little representation, who do you turn to as a role model, or who did you turn to as a role model in your early career, and how do you emulate them in your own life's work?
Yeah, I've been fortunate. I think I've had a lot of really good role models who were women, and particularly Black women, and in particular cardiologists. And so that was really unique.
Yeah.
From my early days at Case Western Reserve when I was a med student, I had leadership like Janice Douglas or Ann Taylor. And those people took me under their wing and said, you have potential, right? And then helped me make decisions as it ultimately came down to Duke for my residency. And so what I've charged myself with is to try to be that same person, right? And to have a positive influence on people around me and connecting with the community or developing pathway programs within my institution and then outside of the institution as well. And so I think that developing long lines of communication, mentor programs within the institution from residency to fellowship to attending status, and then as people climb the ranks is really important. But then also connecting down. I have a program that we're doing now in the community with a middle school, right? And so those are things that you're really reaching back and helping say, there's faces that look like you, and you can do this too. So I think that's what my level of commitment was, but I've had really good people in my life who've really been supportive of me. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think I've been very fortunate also, although not at my center or even in my city or region area. Sometimes you do have to seek out. You need to go outside your own center, and I've been fortunate, I think, in taking advantage of actually device companies, and I don't think we're allowed to say that at this meeting, right? We're allowed to, we're allowed to collaborate with industry. We know we can't do what we do without industry support. So going to meetings that could be sponsored by industry, it could be sponsored by the Heart Rhythm Society, where you can gather and get support from each other, and maybe women, if you don't have any women mentors elsewhere, it could be male mentors that are supportive of what you do. And for me, it was, for in EP, it was, Ann Curtis and Ann Gillis were, kind of, give you a little bit of a role model and give you some, not just mentorship but sponsorship, which is really, really key. So, I'm certainly at the stage of my career and have been for a while where you can give back, and I think that's the important thing. Once you've realized how much you're so fortunate, you're so lucky to have had that mentorship and sponsorship, is to give back to other women. So I'm very much involved in several different programs that actually, even leadership training programs. We had one for HRX for women, young women in EP called Glow, but there's many others sponsored by device companies and other sources that I think we all should participate in.
Yeah. How about you, Noemi?
For me, a little bit different perspective, but when I was growing up, my grandmother was actually a female entrepreneur, started her own business, and is actually still working today at 85 years old. So she's amazing, and just really taught me to take a risk and also to just be authentic and be yourself. But really just gave me that courage and that support to really strike out on my own and do something. And so I was very fortunate to grow up with that role model.
Yeah, and to still have
really
her.
what your role models have shown you is where you've really, I could see how we've kind of gravitated in that direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you're now the role model, and as you spoke already, Dr. Russo, about this, some of the things that you're doing to pave the way. What else can we be doing as participants in this to pave the way for others as they make their way through their careers?
Dr. Russo, you spoke about mentorship. I think that's so important to share that knowledge with others, continue to educate, be compassionate leaders, and be in our company where we believe in servant leadership, and that's something that I think females do very well. But providing the education and that support, and just continue to be mentors to bring others with us.
And I think it's also great. I would take a call out to industry and other companies to consider when they're putting together boards for research or for consultants, to consider the women. So we really have to, we could do so much, but industry can help us.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I think it's remaining connected to your community and kind of growing and developing that pathway, I think, is key. And then also as we get opportunities to then look back and see. So like with Glow, we have Globe, right? And so Black electrophysiologists. And like I said, this is great. Now I have a whole list of people who now can become speakers for HRS or other things.
Yes.
And I think that's really important. And then pulling people to let them elevate and continue to grow in the way that I've done it. And then I look to people like Dr. Russo, fangirling, sorry, but for people for mentorship, and guidance and steps and sponsorship. So
yeah. You spoke to industry. I mean, we're here as industry. What do you recommend to us to make it more inclusive and open?
I would say look at your numbers, look at your data within your organization, and see how many women and men and different race, ethnicity you have on your different boards of whether it be advisory boards, whether it be research groups, whether it be a new study that's going on. I think, look at that and make sure that you enhance the diversity on those groups to represent women and other race ethnicity groups that are not so well represented.
Yeah, no, I think it's really important. It certainly can be a miss. So. Last question, a little bit lighter. What advice would you give to the younger you, knowing what you know today, navigating the challenges you faced, or even what advice do you give your young loved ones, whether that's children or nieces and nephews?
I think remaining authentic and being you, right? But then looking at your talents and then just following your passion. I think it's so important for people to love what they do and do what they love, right? All the other stuff will work out. But if you follow your passion, then every day you get up thankful and you can make an impact on somebody's lives in whatever space you're working in. So.
And I would add just persistence. If you really want something, don't give up because you didn't get it the first time. Kind of look at that, see if there's a pathway towards getting there that might get you there a little bit the next time, more likely. And then really enjoy what you do. I tell my son that all the time. He's 18, is applying to college. It's like, I know you don't want to go into medicine, but whatever you want to do, go. I want you to be happy. Do what you're going to love to do because you're going to do it for a long time.
Yes, sure are.
We're talking a lot about authenticity and being yourself, and absolutely echo that 100%. I had someone tell me actually just last year here at HRX to be yourself. That seems to be working for you, and that has just really stuck with me. And I think that that's one of the most important things for all of us. And then also, not to be afraid to take a risk and put yourself out there. You never know what you can achieve.
Yeah, I thought that was really nice. I heard that on stage also this morning. Right, it's like this. Authenticity is really important, and that I think we find ourselves as women living in a male world in some cases that not sharing our place, and that our place is here, and to be yourself, and that's enough. So with that, I just wanted to thank our panelists for being here with us, Dr. Fraizer-Mills, Dr. Russo, and Noemi, and for those joining, thank you for watching.
Thank you.